Hello everybody, I'm Krasia Tasiu, and I will talk about the last eclipse of this year, 2019, and this is the eclipse which will occur in December 26th, and this is annular solar eclipse. Why this eclipse is called annular? This is because the disk of the moon is partially darkening the disk of the sun, and you see the moon's disk like coming just in front of the sun, and you see the small circle of light still coming from the light of the sun. So this eclipse is taking place on 26th of December. Now, to tell you, there is nothing to worry so much about, because per year we have from 2 to 7 eclipses which need to take place. It is something that happens. It is something that is allowed by the universe, by the creator, to take place. So good or bad, everything that is caused by the wise hand of the creator is good. Well, this eclipse in particular is a bit special because we're having too many planets that take place in the eclipse, and in a moment I will share my screen with you astrologically to show you what it means in my perception, from my point of view. And here is, I would like to tell you that my point of view is based on ancient Babylonian astrology, which is sidereal, and also I'm looking at ancient ominous texts. So I'm deriving from their information in order to tell you how such eclipses were analyzed in ancient Babylon, also by the ancient Indians as well, because they would also look from ominous perspective at the eclipses. So what is happening is that this eclipse, of course, is not going to be seen through the not of course, but this time is not going to be visible through the northern hemisphere. Now, it is important to tell you that the most influenced or affected countries are those that see the shadow of the eclipse. And this eclipse, I'm looking now on the website officially of NASA. So this eclipse will be visible from Saudi Arabia, Oman, southern India, parts of Indonesia. If weather is permitting, it's very important to most of Asia, part of North and East Africa, Northwest Australia. So, and this is a partial eclipse. Now I'm sharing my screen with you and the astrological chart of the eclipse. I think it's very important while I am speaking to illustrate my words with the astrological chart. First of all, you can see sidereally, it is sidereal, the sign of sidereal Sagittarius. You can see that the whole sign of Sagittarius is like darkened by the eclipse. We have Mercury, which just entered the sign of Sagittarius, the sun, of course, Jupiter, Ketu, the moon, Saturn, and Pluto, and on both sides you're having Mars and Venus. But let's see the sign of Sagittarius. This is the Babylonian Pabilsak or Pabilsak, and this is the Centaurus, not very different from, just that he was two-headed in Babylon. So he's not very different from the sign of the Sagittarius, the man who is having who's a Centaurus on a horse. He's not very different from the Sagittarius that we know now. And what is the sign of Sagittarius? Of course, it is ruled by Jupiter. Partially, I will tell you, we can even think that Saturn has some dignities in the sign of Sagittarius, because the ancient Ninurta, which is the ruler of the sign of Sagittarius, was considered also to be in Babylon to be ruler. Now Jupiter is ruling, of course, the sign of Sagittarius, but we can. We should also take in, just in our minds, the ancient mythological stories that Ninurta, Saturn has also some dignities over the sign of Sagittarius. This is important to tell you when we are going to analyze the specific placement of all these planets in the sign of Sagittarius. And of course, I will use the ancient omena of the Babylonians to illustrate my words. So what is the sign of Sagittarius? First, what we know about the sign of Sagittarius. Of course, that it's ruled by Jupiter, and as such, it is the sign which is significant with the Jupiterian moral values, with knowledge, with empathy, with the Jupiterian abundance, with all beautiful features that Jupiter can bring. The sign of Sagittarius is known for something very important. In the 5th degrees of Sidereal Sagittarius, we're having the Milky Way, the beginning of the Milky Way, the head of the Milky Way, which is leaving the sign in the 5th degrees of Gemini. But this is the beginning of the big highway on the sky of the spiritual significant place on the sign, like the galactic center or the Milky Way. And this gathering of planets is happening in the Milky, around the Milky Way, all around the Milky Way. And also very interesting, the moon is in the nebula of the Milky Way. What is a nebula? It is by itself already a place which is known by some sort of darkness. It's a cluster of many, many stars, and it's basically a cloud of stars, which not necessarily has very good meaning. It has more like meaning also of darkening. This is about the nebulas. Always the nebulas have such significance. So what is happening is that we're having all these planets in a sign very significant with spirituality, with philosophical, religious values and knowledge, with teaching, with the whole moral and belief system and philosophical system of the humanity. Also, what we know is something additionally important to the significance of the sign of Sagittarius. As you know, sidereally, the point of the spring equinox or the vernal equinox is not in the 0 degrees Aries, but it is approximately around the 5 degrees Pisces, which would say that automatically that the point of the winter equinox is in the 5 degrees of Sagittarius. Again, this gives additional significance. It makes the sign important from the perspective that this sign is where we're having the winter solstice. Very, very significant sign for our era, signification for our era. Milky Way, tropical sign, and gathering of all planets apart from Mars and Venus in the sign of Sagittarius. And they are all invisible. And it's like a bit of irony, of the universe, that it's like the eclipse just waited for Mercury to enter Sagittarius and to start the eclipse, because Mercury is in the 2nd degree of the sign. I think when the eclipse started, Mercury was in the 1st degree. Mercury will be even just in the beginning of the sign of Sagittarius, Sidereal Sagittarius. So Mars is above. If you turn these planets to the ascendant, Mars is coming just above the eclipsed planets, and Venus is below, which is very interesting, because what are Mars and Venus? These are personal planets. These are more associated with people's instincts and less with people's spirituality, moral values, and philosophical belief system. So most probably, because of this gathering, I will of course tell you how this will affect us personally, and I will tell you also what the ominous texts are saying. But before that, if you only imagine all these planets, apart from the personal planets, Mars and Venus, all these planets are having their assembly in the spiritual sign, in such a royal sign as the sign of Sagittarius, because and in a sign significant for our era, for the people which are born now in this important, interesting lifetime, important for the development of our souls, that's for sure. So what you have in here is assembly of planets that are very much about knowledge and spirituality, and this is being darkened. So what is going to happen is like our value, spiritual system, our level of consciousness, our vibrational levels, and just name it, all this is going through either change, transformation. It's like being tested. You will not see immediate results from this eclipse, like you will not see immediately events that will happen. Of course, the day itself is not good. During the day and the moment of the eclipse, it's really advisable not to watch the eclipsed sun if this is relevant for your area. it is advisable really to avoid eating or exposing your food to the eclipse. It is more like maybe developing your intuition, but really I would not advise any rituals during this eclipse. I will remind you that in the ancient times, be it according to the ancient Sumerians, Babylonians, also the Indian Vedics, I would tell you that the eclipse is no way to be considered auspicious and positive. No way. There is not even a word about positive eclipse. Some very minor details, of course, that can be considered positive, because this is the royal art of astrology, which would say that the eclipses, especially in Babylon, were mainly watched by the astrologer priest in order to serve the king. So I will tell you that in the times of the Sargon the Great, he had a whole team of scholars, astrologers, and there was this temple in the middle of his kingdom, and then they would observe what they had a very, very special, and we don't know, we haven't seen yet, nothing as such was found. I think only in India they would have very special observational devices, something like a loop glass, but we don't know exactly what this exactly was. And they would look at the eclipses, and they would analyze, and they would have statistical reports, and these astronomical diaries are found now. So this great astrological timing, especially during the ruling of Sargon the Great, was known with the analysis of the eclipses, and they were not considered auspicious. However, we have eclipses all the time, so nothing to worry about, but knowledge is power. It's to know how to use this knowledge. So the eclipse is happening in the second night watch, which would say we will not immediately experience, most probably, the effects of this eclipse. We will experience this like in approximately 3 months and 10 days. See, this is one thing that I wanted to tell you. Then, because we are having Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Sagittarius eclipsed, and we're having Mars above, this is typically not good for the royal power, and mainly here we can consider the Asian countries afflicted. So there will be some like the royal power will be questioned. People of royal and prince origin and power may suffer from this eclipse. They may lose their power, they may die. It is certainly so that this eclipse is definitely not beneficial for this. Another thing is that when eclipse is happening in the evening watch and in the sign of Sagittarius, according to the Babylonian Almanac, it is so that this is very negative for the agriculture. It would really not good, and it would say the increase of the products of the prices of the products of our agriculture, especially for the afflicted countries, and this would also lead to, I'm literally saying what I read, famine and struggle for food. So this is the possibility, and this is because the sign of Sagittarius is very much related with the agriculture, especially when eclipse is happening in this particular place. Another thing is Mercury, when he entered, he was in the sign, in the degree of the star in the sting of the Scorpion. So somehow there will be a speech which will endanger someone, or there is something that is being discussed, or plans which are happening in the darkness, like darkened by the moon, and this is happening on a royal level. And certainly there will be further affliction of the speech and the freedom of speech if we allow this. In other words, this eclipse is questioning our belief system, connection with God. It is testing our moral values, and in general our also, I said belief system, but it is also the religious values, the religious all over the world. There will be also some, because of Mercury, who is very much involved, there will certainly going to be some kind of affliction related to the markets, but I said that when the agriculture suffers, this is also part of it. On the other hand, as you see very interestingly, and this is how I read it, you have Mars and Mercury on both sides, the personal planets, our instincts. Like, would we opt for our instincts, or we will opt on the first place to develop our consciousness, our connection with the creator in the universe? And then certainly this eclipse will not be harmful for us, and the other way around. Our vibrational level, our level of consciousness, our belief system, our religious and moral values and beliefs will be tested, and whether we will be able to benefit from what is happening or we are going to suffer remains entirely to us, our choices, our knowledge, and and certainly our ability to grow as a result of such events, which are not positive, but they can turn in the end of the day as something very positive related to our spirituality, in general to the spirituality of humanity. Now, when I meant that this eclipse is going to give results later, this is also like a preparation to major events that will take place after Saturn enters his sidereal home, sidereal Capricorn, which is happening in the end of January. So this eclipse and the eclipse on the 10th of January are like, which I will separately discuss with another, of course, astrological chart. But this eclipse is something that is like a preparation for big events which are taking place. Once again, there are many eclipses happening, I think up to 7 per year, so nothing so much to worry about, but to yes, to have the lesson, to use the knowledge, and to remain very spiritual, not to forget that we're one with the creator and that we're creating our own realities. Also, there is a risk from some hostilities, because in the ancient texts they say that during eclipse, if Mars is remaining visible and as powerful as he is now, just in the Martian term, and just entering his own sign of Scorpio, then there are terrorism, hostilities, hidden actions. This is very much possible. This is not to tell you and scare you, but to tell you, be very spiritual, remain connected to the spirit world, with your higher self, with the creator. This is the only way and the only true path for each one of us. This is the reason why we are here. So also when Saturn is afflicted, this is the star of a cat in the ancient Babylon, it possibly means hostilities. Pluto, Saturn together, Ketu, so on. So how on individual level this will influences, I partially answered this question, but of course I will tell you that for approximately 3 to 4 months, people who have sidereal Sagittarius on the ascendant, or have Moon or Sun in Sagittarius, or Sagittarians on midheaven or on the descendant, need to be a little bit cautious, aware that this period of 3 to 4 months from the moment of the eclipse up until April approximately is a period which may not be so lucky. I will give you an example. If you, for example, have a plan like for example, to start a new business in, let's say, in February, but you know that the eclipse was happening in sidereal Sagittarius and is eclipsed your ascendant, I would tell you, wait a while, because this is a little bit blocking your luck. If you have a surgery that you can postpone, I would tell you postpone it, because you need the luck to be on your side, which would say, wait a while, why the period of the eclipse is passing. And as I told you in the ancient texts, approximately 3 months and 10 days. Also in relation to the agriculture, when you know that the agriculture may suffer, that you may need to invest more efforts. Again, here is very good to have this knowledge, so that you take the needed measures, and also the connection with the spirit world is very important in this as well. So Well, basically, this is the most important. I would not look. Don't find appropriate to look at aspects of the eclipses, because this is not that powerful. In my experience, also shows that this is not really working that in such powerful way. But I will tell you, be a little bit patient if you have in Sagittarius ascendant, Sagittarius moon, Sagittarius sun, Sagittarius descendant, Sagittarius midheaven, Sagittarius lower meridian, imum celi. If this is the case with you, don't worry. The fears are absolutely not needed, not appropriate, but be very spiritual, connect with the spirit world, with your higher self. Remember that these eclipses are allowed by the creator, so they have a cleansing powers. They always come with certain task, and this is why we live in such interesting times. And even more, unfortunately, more interesting times, maybe not unfortunately, come when Saturn enters his own sign. But I want to devote special video on this because it's very interesting. I'm preparing it. Also, I'm preparing a video for each of the 12 ascendants for the year of 2020. Hope this will be interesting for you. So this was basically for the eclipse. Another thing that I wanted to, again, to emphasize, don't look at the eclipse. I will tell you, so many people told me that they were very curious and they would climb high in the mountains to watch the eclipse. And after that, series of unfortunate events happened. I will tell you, this is not appropriate. What is really good to do is to stay at home or in the temple if this is your desire. Do what your intuition leads you to do, but certainly don't look at the eclipse. This is how I would advise you. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.